The lone incursion. Sensor Officer Talik's antennae twitched violently as the readings on his console spiked. In 15 cycles of service to the Alaxian Empire, he had never seen an anomaly like this. The object had appeared seemingly from nowhere, bypassing the extensive detection grid that spanned the Kaldar sector. "Commander Israk," Talik called, his voice wavering with uncertainty. "Unknown vessel detected at coordinates 37 to 8205. Configuration. Configuration matches no known species in our database." Commander Israk, a veteran of the Meridian conflicts, approached the console with measured steps. His scaled skin rippled with a color pattern indicating concern as he studied the readings. "Magnification," he ordered. The main view screen shifted, revealing a distant silhouette against the starfield. The vessel was angular, predatory in design, with none of the flowing organic curves typical of Alaxian ships or their allies. Its hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it appear as a ship-shaped void against the stars. "Match against historical records," Ezrak commanded, a cold feeling settling in his gut. Talik's manipulators flew across his interface. "Match found. 97% probability. Commander, this is a human warship." The command center of Outpost Kaldar 7 fell silent. Humans were supposed to be contained, isolated behind the quantum barrier established after the Terran-Alaxian War 30 cycles ago. No human vessel had been seen beyond their solar system since the Treaty of Vega. "Alert Imperial Command," Ezrak said, his voice unnaturally calm. "Priority Alpha. And activate defensive protocols." As alarms began to sound throughout the outpost, Ezrak studied the vessel with growing concern. It was not a design he recognized from the war. This was something new, more advanced. The humans had been building while the Empire grew complacent. Admiral Krell stood before the Imperial Council, his posture rigid as the 12 members of the highest governing body of the Alaxian Empire regarded him with expressions ranging from concern to outright fear. "The vessel identified itself as the TDF Defiant," Krell reported. "It has maintained position at the edge of the Kaldar sector and has made no aggressive movements. However, it has repeatedly requested direct communication with this council." High Chancellor Vex leaned forward, her ceremonial headpiece jingling softly. "A single human warship crosses our border after 30 cycles of silence, and you allowed it to remain." "With respect, Chancellor," Krell replied, "the vessel's capabilities are concerning. Our scans cannot penetrate its defensive systems, but energy readings suggest weapons far beyond what we faced during the war. Attempting to force its retreat could trigger a conflict we are not prepared for." Councillor Merrick, who had commanded fleets during the war, rumbled deep in his throat. The humans were inventive adversaries. If they have continued advancing their military technology at their previous pace, we must know their purpose, said Councillor Ileana, the youngest member of the council. "A single ship is not an invasion force. This may be a diplomatic overture, or a scout for something larger," Vex countered. After heated debate, the council reached a consensus. Admiral Krell would meet with the human captain aboard a neutral station at the edge of the sector. Imperial guards would be present, and the 7th Fleet would stand ready nearby, should the humans prove hostile. As Krell departed the chamber, Councillor Merrick fell into step beside him. "I faced humans in combat," Merrick said quietly. "They were physically weaker than our warriors, shorter-lived, with no natural defenses. Yet they fought with a creativity and determination that was unsettling." "I've studied the war extensively," Krell acknowledged. "Then you know numbers and technology do not tell the full story with humans," Merrick warned. "Be careful, Admiral. Their greatest weapon has always been their unpredictability." The neutral station was actually a repurposed mining facility, chosen for its location at the exact midpoint between the Defiant and the nearest Imperial stronghold. Admiral Krell arrived with a contingent of 8 guards, all veterans of special operations. The human delegation was already waiting in the conference room. Their leader stood as the Alaxians entered, a female with olive skin and dark hair pulled back tightly. Her uniform was deep blue with silver insignia that Krell didn't recognize. "Admiral Krell," she said in fluent Alaxian, surprising him. "I'm Captain Maya Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Krell settled his large frame into a reinforced chair across from her. "Your presence here violates the Treaty of Vega, Captain Chen. Explain yourself before I order your vessel escorted back to the quantum barrier, or destroyed if you resist." If the threat concerned her, Chen showed no sign. Instead, she placed a small device on the table between them. It projected a three-dimensional star map of the region. "3 months ago, we detected these anomalies near the outer edge of our territory," she said, indicating pulsing points of light on the map. "They match energy signatures we've observed before, signatures associated with what we call the Void Swarm." "I am unfamiliar with this term," Krell said cautiously. Chen's expression darkened. "The real reason humanity retreated behind the quantum barrier wasn't because of our losses in the war, Admiral. It was because we faced an existential threat from outside the galaxy, entities that exist partially in subspace, drawn to advanced civilizations. We call them the Void Swarm because they move and consume like insects, but on a planetary scale." She manipulated the projection, showing recordings that made Krell's scales ripple with instinctive fear. Dark, amorphous shapes flowed across what appeared to be human cities, leaving nothing but bare ground in their wake. "These recordings are from the Battle of New Shanghai, 15 cycles ago," Chen continued. 2 million people lived there. We evacuated less than half before the colony was consumed. "If this threat is real," Krell said, "why come to us? Our species attempted mutual extinction within living memory." "Because the swarm is expanding," Chen replied simply. "Our scientists project that they will reach Alaxian space within 1 standard year. The quantum barrier doesn't just keep us in, Admiral, it was designed to keep them out. But they're adapting, finding ways around it. Humanity can't face this threat alone anymore." Krell studied the human captain carefully. Their species were physically different in countless ways, making it difficult to read human expressions. But in Chen's eyes, he saw something he recognized from his own warriors, the steady resolve of someone who had faced death repeatedly and returned to fight again. "You expect the Empire to believe that a mysterious threat, conveniently invisible to our sensors, is approaching," he said. "This could easily be a deception to gain military advantage. We anticipated your skepticism." Chen nodded. She placed a data crystal on the table. "These are coordinates in uninhabited space where a swarm scout has already crossed over. Send your own ships, but equip them with the shielding specifications included in this data. Without it, your crews won't survive contact." The Imperial research vessel Inquirer approached the coordinates with extreme caution. Admiral Krell had insisted on leading this mission personally, against the advice of the Imperial Council. If the humans were setting a trap, he would not send others to spring it. The science team had worked feverishly to implement the shielding specifications from the human data crystal. The modifications went against established Alaxian engineering principles, creating energy fields that oscillated between different quantum states in a pattern that seemed almost chaotic. "We're approaching the designated coordinates, Admiral," the navigation officer reported. "No unusual readings yet." Krell was about to respond when a junior sensor operator called out, "Sir, subspace distortion forming directly ahead." The view screen showed only empty space, but the sensor readings told a different story. Something was there, distorting the very fabric of reality around it. "Full stop," Krell ordered. "Activate the human shielding protocols." A faint shimmer surrounded the ship as the modified shields engaged. Moments later, something emerged from what had appeared to be empty space, a darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than merely block it. It moved with unsettling fluidity, like liquid shadow. "What in the 7 moons?" whispered the weapons officer. The darkness seemed to sense their presence. It flowed toward the Inquirer with increasing speed. "Evasive maneuvers," Krell commanded. The ship veered away, but the shadow entity adjusted its course with impossible precision. As it neared, their sensors began to malfunction, screens flickering with static. "The shields are holding," reported the engineering officer, surprise evident in his voice. "The entity is attempting to penetrate them, but the quantum oscillation is preventing it from establishing contact with the hull." Krell watched in horrified fascination as the shadow engulfed their ship, plunging them into absolute darkness. Only the glow of their control panels provided any light. Through the viewports, they could see nothing. Not stars, not space itself. Just void. After several tense minutes, the darkness receded. Stars reappeared on their view screens. The entity moved away, seemingly losing interest once it could not penetrate their defenses. "Track it," Krell ordered, his voice hoarse. "I'm trying, sir," the sensor officer replied. "But it's gone. It seems to have phased back into subspace." Krell settled back in his command chair, his mind racing. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. If these entities were gathering at the edge of Alaxian space as the humans claimed. "Set course for Imperial Command," he ordered. "Maximum speed. And prepare all sensor logs for transmission. The Council needs to see this immediately." Maya Chen waited aboard the Defiant, attempting to meditate in her quarters, but finding her thoughts too turbulent for calm. Everything hinged on whether the Alaxians would believe the evidence of their own sensors, or whether centuries of suspicion would overwhelm rational assessment. The door chimed, and her executive officer entered. Commander Jackson was tall and lean, with implants visible at his temples, neural interfaces that allowed him to process tactical data at superhuman speeds. "The Alaxian vessel has returned to their territory," he reported. "Their shields held during the encounter. And the entity behaved exactly as predicted. It attempted to feed, failed, and retreated." Maya nodded slowly. "Then we wait." "Captain," Jackson said carefully, "if they refuse to cooperate." "They won't," Maya interrupted. "Admiral Krell is a rational leader. He's seen the threat now. Rational doesn't always win against prejudice." Jackson reminded her. The Alaxian Empire was built on conquest. They'd never faced an existential threat before, never had to ally with former enemies. Maya approached the viewport, gazing out at the stars. "Humanity didn't exactly handle first contact well either. We nearly destroyed ourselves fighting the Alaxians before the swarm appeared. Now we need each other." Her communication panel chimed. "Captain Chen," came the voice of her communications officer. "We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Krell." Maya took a deep breath. "Put it through." Admiral Krell's scaled face appeared on her screen, his expression unreadable to most humans. But Maya had studied Alaxian physiognomy extensively during her preparation for this mission. "You were correct, Captain," Krell said without preamble. "The Imperial Council has reviewed our sensor logs and acknowledged the threat. They have granted permission for your vessel to proceed to Imperial Center for direct consultation." Relief flooded through Maya, but she kept her expression professional. "Thank you, Admiral. We stand ready to share all our knowledge of the Void Swarm." "Understand this," Krell continued, his voice hardening. "You will be under constant surveillance. Any deviation from approved flight paths will be considered hostile action. And know that many in the Empire still remember the devastation your species brought to our colonies during the war." "Just as we remember the Alaxian bombardment of Earth," Maya replied evenly. "But the past will not matter if we have no future, Admiral. The Defiant will follow your escort vessel's lead." As the communication ended, Maya turned to Jackson. "Alert all departments. We're entering Phase 2. "You really think this will work?" Jackson asked. "One human battleship convincing an entire empire to ally with their former enemies." Maya's lips curved in a slight smile. "Sometimes, Commander, a single ship in the right place at the right time can change history." The journey to the Imperial Center took 4 days at sublight speeds, as the Alaxians refused to share their secure hyperspace routes with the human vessel. The Defiant traveled in the center of an escort formation, ostensibly for protection, but Maya knew it was really to ensure they couldn't deviate course or transmit unmonitored communications. As they neared the massive orbital construct that served as the Empire's administrative heart, Maya stood on the bridge, taking in the sight. Unlike human space stations, which tended toward functional design, the Imperial Center was a work of art. Concentric rings of gleaming metal surrounding a core structure shaped like a blooming flower, all rotating in perfect harmony. "Beautiful," she murmured. "And heavily armed," Jackson added quietly. "I'm counting over 1,000 weapons emplacements, and those are just the ones they want us to see." The Defiant docked at an external berth, well away from the center's vital areas. Maya led a small delegation consisting of herself, Jackson, and their chief science officer, Dr. Ileana Reyes, a quantum physicist who had studied the Void Swarm since first contact. They were met by Admiral Krell and an honor guard whose ceremonial weapons didn't quite hide the very real sidearms they also carried. "The Council awaits," Krell said simply. As they were escorted through the station's ornate corridors, Maya noticed how other Alaxians stopped to stare at them. Some showed curiosity, others unmistakable hostility. Few living Alaxians had ever seen humans in person. The council chamber was a vast, circular room dominated by a holographic display of the entire Alaxian Empire in miniature. The 12 council members sat in elevated positions around the perimeter, looking down at the central floor where Maya and her team now stood. High Chancellor Vex spoke first, her translator converting her complex harmonics into English. "Captain Chen, you stand before this council as the first human to enter our space in 30 cycles. The treaty your people signed confined humanity to your home system in perpetuity. Explain why we should not consider this an act of war." Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. "Chancellor, esteemed council members, 30 cycles ago, our peoples fought a war born of misunderstanding and fear. When we retreated behind the quantum barrier, you believed it was your military might that had defeated us. The truth is more complex." She activated the data device she had brought, and the holographic galaxy above them shifted, showing dark tendrils reaching inward from the outer rim. "Shortly before our conflict began, humanity encountered the entities we call the Void Swarm. They exist partially in subspace, making them invisible to conventional sensors. They are drawn to the energy signatures of advanced civilizations, and they consume all organic life they encounter." Dr. Reyes continued the briefing, explaining the scientific principles behind the swarm's existence and their methods of detection and defense. As she spoke, Maya watched the council members' reactions. Some appeared skeptical, others disturbed. "If these creatures are so dangerous," asked a counselor Maya didn't recognize, "why have we never encountered them in our exploration?" "Because humanity has been containing them," Maya answered. "The quantum barrier serves 2 purposes. It keeps humans isolated, as you wished, but it also creates a subspace distortion that has, until now, redirected the swarm away from populated regions. We've been fighting them in the darkness beyond our barrier for 3 decades. Convenient that we cannot verify these battles," remarked another counselor. "Admiral Krell's encounter verified our claims," Maya countered. "And we've provided coordinates of 7 more incursion points approaching Alaxian space. You can investigate each one." The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments, some counselors demanding verification, others calling for the humans to be escorted back beyond the barrier immediately. Chancellor Vex finally restored order. "You ask us to believe that humanity, rather than rebuilding after our war, has secretly been defending the galaxy from invisible monsters." Vex's tone made her skepticism clear. "Not the entire galaxy," Maya corrected. "Just our corner of it. But the swarm is adapting, finding ways around the barrier. They've developed a taste for humanoid life energy. If they break through in force, They'll spread across your empire before you can develop effective countermeasures. And what do you propose? Asked Counselor Merak, who had been silently observing until now. Alliance, Maya said simply. Humanity has the knowledge and experience to fight the swarm. The Empire has the resources and industrial capacity to implement defenses on a galactic scale. Either we stand together, or we fall separately. As the Council deliberated, Maya could sense the deep divisions among them. Some saw the wisdom in her words. Others could not move past decades of enmity. You will be provided quarters while we consider your proposal, Chancellor Vex announced finally. Admiral Krell will continue to be your liaison. As they were escorted from the chamber, Maya caught Krell's eye. The Admiral's scales had shifted to a pattern she hadn't seen before. What does that coloration mean? She asked quietly as they walked. Krell glanced down at his own skin in surprise, as if unaware of the change. It is rare, the pattern of imminent transformation. I don't understand. It means, Krell said carefully, that everything is about to change. Alliance of necessity. Maya Chen had never been comfortable with waiting. Throughout her 15 years of military service, she had always preferred action. The clean certainty of decisions made and consequences faced. Yet here she was, confined to luxurious guest quarters on the Imperial Center, while alien politicians debated the fate of two civilizations. The accommodations were clearly designed for diplomatic visitors from allied species, not humans. The gravity was slightly too heavy, the lighting spectrum shifted toward the ultraviolet, and the temperature several degrees warmer than human preference. Maya suspected these oversights were intentional, subtle reminders that humans were outsiders here. Commander Jackson paced the common area, his cybernetic implants occasionally blinking as he ran scenarios. It's been 3 days, he muttered. How long can it take to verify an existential threat? Dr. Rice looked up from her data tablet. They're being thorough. The Alaxian Science Directorate has been sending me questions nonstop, quite sophisticated ones. They're taking this seriously. Some of them are, Maya corrected. Others see us as the greater threat. The door chimed, and Admiral Krell entered without waiting for acknowledgement. His scales had settled into their normal pattern, but his posture seemed more rigid than usual. The Council has reached a decision, he announced. You will present again in 1 hour. Prepare your final arguments. That doesn't sound promising, Jackson observed after Krell departed. Maya stood and straightened her uniform. It means they're divided. We still have a chance to sway them. The council chamber seemed more imposing during this second visit. Additional military officers and scientific advisors lined the walls, their attention fixed on the human delegation. High Chancellor Vex addressed them without preamble. Captain Chen, we have verified the existence of these void swarm entities at 3 of the coordinates you provided. Our scientists confirm they pose a significant threat. Maya felt a surge of cautious optimism, but Vex continued. However, many on this council question whether an alliance with humanity serves the Empire's interests. Your species proved dangerously unpredictable during our conflict. Some suggest we should reinforce the quantum barrier from our side and allow it to continue containing the threat. Maya stepped forward. Chancellor, with respect, that approach will fail. The barrier is degrading. Earth has suffered 7 major incursions in the past year alone. Our latest models project complete barrier failure within 18 months. She activated her data device again, but this time instead of scientific projections, it displayed footage from Earth. The images showed massive shield generators surrounding major cities, civilian populations being evacuated into underground shelters, and defense forces engaged in desperate battles against shadowy entities that distorted reality around them. This is not some distant, theoretical threat, Maya said, her voice hardening. This is humanity's daily reality. We've lost billions to the swarm. Entire continents on Earth are uninhabitable. Our colonies are under constant attack. The chamber fell silent as the footage continued. Even the most skeptical counselors seemed affected by the scenes of destruction. If the swarm breaches your space in force, Maya continued, you will face this same reality, but without decades of experience fighting them. Your weapons will be useless. Your shields will fail. Your populations will be consumed. Counselor Merrick leaned forward. Captain Chen, if the situation on Earth is this dire, why send your advanced warship here? Surely it would be better deployed defending your homeworld. The Defiant represents our best hope, not just for humanity, but for all sentient life. Maya explained. It carries our most advanced defensive and offensive technologies, specifically designed to combat the swarm. But one ship, no matter how advanced, cannot hold back the tide forever. We need allies. We need the industrial and scientific capabilities of the Alaxian Empire. And what exactly would this alliance entail? Asked Chancellor Vex. We share all our knowledge about the swarm, their behavior patterns, weaknesses, effective countermeasures. You provide the resources to implement defensive systems across your territory. Together, we develop new technologies to not just contain the swarm, but potentially eliminate it entirely. Dr. Rice stepped forward. The swarm exists partially in subspace, which makes them difficult to detect and engage. But this dual-state existence is also a vulnerability. Our research suggests that coordinated strikes from multiple vectors in both normal space and subspace could disrupt their cohesion permanently. As the scientific discussion intensified, Maya noticed Admiral Krell studying her with newfound intensity. When a break in the questioning came, he spoke directly to her. Captain Chen, you mentioned billions lost on Earth. Yet you stand before us composed, professional, fighting for a solution rather than seeking vengeance. Why? The question caught Maya off guard with its directness. For a moment, her carefully maintained diplomatic facade cracked, revealing the weight of responsibility and loss she carried. My parents died in the first incursion, she said quietly. My brother and his family in the fifth. I've watched the world I knew disappear piece by piece. But vengeance doesn't bring back the dead admiral. Only preventing more death matters now. Before Krell could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the chamber. A military aide rushed to Chancellor Vex, speaking urgently in their native language. What's happening? Maya demanded. Vex's translator conveyed her response with electronic calm that belied the gravity of her words. We are receiving distress calls from Colony World Theros 9. They report an invasion of shadow beings that consume all life they touch. The command center of the Imperial Center was a flurry of activity as reports flooded in from Theros 9. Maya and her team had been granted emergency access, standing beside Admiral Krell as they watched the crisis unfold through fragmented communications. Conventional weapons ineffective, reported a colonial defense officer, his transmission breaking up. The shadows passed through physical barriers. They're inside the main settlement now. Casualties. The transmission cut off abruptly. Distance to Theros 9. Krell demanded. 4 light days at maximum speed. An officer responded. Too far for immediate intervention, Krell concluded grimly. Maya stepped forward. The Defiant can reach it in 6 hours. All eyes turned to her. Impossible, said a senior Alaxian commander. Even our fastest ships require at least 3 days. The Defiant uses experimental drive technology developed specifically to respond to swarm incursions. Maya explained. We can deploy immediately with a joint human Alaxian team. Chancellor Vex, who had joined them in the command center, regarded Maya with suspicion. You conveniently have technology that allows you to reach our colony before our own forces. Not conveniently, Maya corrected. Necessarily. The swarm moves through subspace. Conventional engines can't intercept them effectively. This is exactly why we've been trying to establish an alliance, so we can share these technologies before it's too late. After a tense consultation with her advisors, Vex made her decision. Admiral Krell, you will accompany Captain Chen with a contingent of Imperial Guards. Verify the situation on Theros 9 and render assistance if possible. But be warned, if this proves to be some form of deception, With respect, Chancellor, Maya interrupted. Every minute we delay costs lives on Theros 9. Dr. Rice needs to come with us to configure our defensive systems or Alaxian physiology. Commander Jackson will remain here as our liaison. Jackson started to protest, but Maya silenced him with a look. They both understood. Leaving him behind was a gesture of good faith. It meant the humans weren't abandoning the diplomatic mission. 6 hours later, the Defiant dropped out of its specialized FTL state near Theros 9. Admiral Krell had spent the journey studying the human vessel with professional interest. Despite his skepticism about many human claims, he couldn't deny the impressive nature of their technology. The ship's design emphasized functionality over aesthetics, with redundant systems and adaptive configurations unlike anything in the Imperial fleet. Approaching Theros 9, announced the navigation officer, a serious-faced human woman. Sensors detecting massive subspace distortions across the northern continent. The main view screen showed the planet below, a primarily agricultural world with a population of approximately 3 million. Dark tendrils swirled across its surface like ink dropped in water. Life signs? Maya asked. Scattered. Concentrated in the southern hemisphere. The northern continent shows almost nothing. Krell felt his scales ripple with horror. The northern continent had been home to over 2 million colonists. Deploy void sensors, Maya ordered. Tactical, prepare dimensional anchors. Dr. Reyes, coordinate with Admiral Krell's team on shield modulation. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, falling into what was clearly a well-rehearsed emergency protocol. Krell and his guards observed in growing appreciation of their expertise. Captain, Krell said, what exactly are dimensional anchors? They create stabilized corridors in local space-time, Maya explained as she reviewed tactical displays. They won't stop the swarm, but they'll slow their spread and create safe zones for evacuation. The Defiant descended into the upper atmosphere, deploying satellite-like devices around the perimeter of the affected area. As each activated, the dark tendrils seemed to recoil. The anchors are online, reported the tactical officer, establishing secure corridor to the southern continent capital. Admiral, Maya turned to Krell. We need to coordinate with your people on the ground. They'll need to modify their shields according to Dr. Rice's specifications if they want to survive evacuation. Krell activated his communication device. This is Admiral Krell of the Imperial Fleet. I am aboard the human vessel Defiant. All colonial forces are to cooperate fully with human technical advisors. This is by direct order of the Imperial Council. The next 12 hours were a blur of coordinated action. The Defiant deployed its shuttles, each equipped with specialized shielding, to evacuate colonists from areas at risk of being overrun. Human technical teams worked alongside Alaxian engineers to modify local defensive systems. Through it all, the dark shadows of the void swarm pressed against the dimensional anchors, testing for weaknesses. From the bridge of the Defiant, Maya and Krell directed the operation. As the evacuation progressed, they received word that Imperial reinforcements were still 2 days away. We've evacuated 60% of the remaining population, the operations officer reported, but the dimensional anchors are showing strain. They won't hold much longer. Maya turned to Krell. We have a contingency measure, but I need your authorization. What measure? A dimensional collapse charge. It will create a localized subspace implosion, forcing the swarm entities back into their native dimension. But it will render roughly 30% of the planet's surface uninhabitable for decades. Krell stared at her in shock. You're asking permission to permanently damage an Imperial world. I'm asking permission to save the remaining population, Maya corrected. The alternative is losing the entire planet and everyone on it. After a brief, intense communication with Imperial Command, Krell received his orders. The Council authorizes the use of your weapon, Captain Chen. Save who we can. The dimensional collapse charge detonated as the last evacuation shuttles cleared the atmosphere. From orbit, it didn't look like a conventional explosion. Instead, reality itself seemed to fold inward at the impact point, the affected area distorting before a wave of energy swept outward, leaving behind barren land where once forests and fields had stood. Sensors confirmed what they hoped. The void swarm presence had been forced back into subspace, the incursion contained. In the aftermath, Maya found Admiral Krell in the observation lounge, staring down at the scared planet. "Survivors are being transferred to your medical ships," she said quietly. "Our teams have provided instructions for ongoing treatment. The swarm leaves a psychic trauma in those who've been near it." Krell didn't look away from the viewport. 1,400,000 dead. An entire continent rendered uninhabitable. "And you've been fighting these things for decades." "Yes." "How?" he asked simply. "How has humanity endured such losses without breaking?" Maya stood beside him, watching as Imperial ships began arriving in the system. "We almost didn't. After the first incursion, there was chaos. Some blamed the Alaxians, believing the swarm was some biological weapon you'd created. Others turned to extreme religious interpretations. Governments collapsed. What changed? Unity, Maya said. A scientist named Director Abrams discovered the first effective defense against the swarm, the same shielding technology we've shared with you. It gave us hope. Different factions put aside their conflicts to focus on survival. The Terran Defense Force was formed from the remnants of national militaries. We built the quantum barrier, not to keep us in as you believed, but to buy time." Krell turned to face her. "The war between our peoples was a tragic mistake," Maya finished. "We were already fighting the swarm when your exploration vessels entered our system. In our paranoia, we mistook them for another threat. You interpreted our attack as unprovoked aggression. By the time both sides realized the error, too much blood had been spilled." A communications officer interrupted them. "Captain, Admiral, Chancellor Vex is requesting your immediate return to Imperial Center." The council chamber was subdued when they arrived. The seats were full, but gone was the hostile scrutiny of their previous appearance. Instead, Maya sensed something new in the Alaxian leadership, a somber respect born of shared tragedy. Chancellor Vex stood as they entered. "Admiral Krell has submitted his report on the events at Theros 9. The Council has reviewed all evidence regarding the Void Swarm threat." She paused, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in her voice. "Captain Chin, 30 cycles ago, our peoples tried to destroy one another. Today, your ship and crew saved over 1 million Imperial citizens.